Hey friend, it's Brandon Gustafson with Assisted Living Investing. Excited to have you here with me on the channel today. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that Victor, who was on our live stream last week, brought up. Is a six-bed assisted living facility really profitable? Does it make sense? Can you do that or not? So I wanted to really dive deep into that topic for us today in our live. If you are new here, please type in newbie. Love seeing all the new people that are here, and we'll have time for questions here at the end of the call as well, or not call at the end of the video as well. So make sure you're typing those in as we go along. I'll try to stay on top of those as we get into the topic, but it's on a different screen and can't always stay on top of it. So type in your questions and we'll definitely get to those at the end of the recording. If you're watching this after the fact, then just type in your questions in the comments down below, and it might turn into a live video similar to this one in the future. I love answering your questions, helping you out, and making sure you get the answers that you need and the support you need as you're trying to launch your assisted living business. At Assisted Living Investing, I help beginners like you launch their assisted living business in the next 12 months. So super excited to be here to help you achieve those goals and to help you make the progress you need so that you can create that time and financial freedom that you're trying to create. So with that all said, I want to make sure, Victor's here already. He's waiting for it. So that's cool. All right, let's get into it. So, is a six-bed assisted living facility profitable? Make sure you go grab the free business plan checklist down there at the link assistedlivinginvesting.net/BP checklist. Get that free link for you to get that free tool to really help you out and make progress. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brandon Gustafson. I own and operate two assisted living facilities. I've done that since 2020. I live in Utah. I operate in Colorado and Idaho, so I do this out of state. I have secured over $1.5 million in SBA funding, so I know the process. I've operated out of state. I mentioned that, and I also have a master's in healthcare administration. I've been in the healthcare industry for over a decade, and love the impact that I get to have on people's lives. It's what really drew me into the healthcare industry, and why I love working in assisted living. So let's get into some of the numbers here. So I really want to help you understand how the numbers work. And something that I always tell people is any deal could potentially work. You just have to understand the numbers. If you've ever looked at real estate, you listen to real estate podcasts, there's always a way to make an opportunity work, but you have to really you have to have a very solid understanding of exactly what those numbers are going to look like in order for you to move forward. So first we're going to talk about the income side of things. So I want to talk about the amount of residents, the amount of money that you're getting per resident on a monthly basis. And we're going to just use a little bit of averages here. We're going to say between $4,000 and $6,000 a month is what you might expect. Now, some of you might be in a lower income spot, and people are only paying $2,500, $3,000. Some of you could be looking at something like I was talking about last week, where you're getting $10, $12, $15,000 a bed on a monthly basis. Really depends. I think an average that makes a lot of sense and that is reasonable is that $4,000 to $6,000 amount. Now, if you're like new to assisted living, you're like that's ridiculous. Who would pay that much money? You have to remember, these are people you're housing them, you're paying for all of their food, you're providing them with care, and when you compare that against in-home care or nursing homes, it's actually very affordable. And then there's other programs that are out there that make it even more affordable for the residents. So this could be Medicaid, could be VA benefits, could be long-term care insurance. There's a lot of ways for people to be able to pay for that care. So it isn't necessarily somebody paying for it out of pocket. Now it could be somebody that owned a house and they've done a reverse mortgage on it, or they've sold it and now they have a windfall of cash. They did really well with their retirement funds, and now they need these services, so they're paying for it there. There's a variety of ways to pay for this. $4,000 to $6,000 per month is a pretty reasonable amount, though. So don't I'm giving you real numbers here is what I want to express. So in this example, we're saying that this is a 6-bed facility. So at $4,000 per month, that's $24,000 in income, and at $6,000 per month, that's $36,000 in income. This is gross income. So this is just the money that's coming to you without expenses. So it seems like a lot, right? I mean, you're thinking, okay, I'm getting 24 to 30, 25, 30,000, $35,000 per month in income every month. Like that's a lot of money. I should be able to run this business pretty easily when you're doing that. And while it's true, it's a lot of money. I have to caution you. So this is why I don't like to look at anything that is less than 10 beds. For the way that I invest, for the way that I run my facilities, it makes it really hard for me to be profitable if I'm less than 10. So a 6-bed facility for me, unless I'm charging that 8, 10, $12,000 a month, I'm probably not going to do it. Now, somebody that's in the nice, boutique style, that's really high end, it might make a lot of sense. And I work with people in my mastermind program that's exactly what they're looking to do. I've run the numbers for them. It looks fine. But if you're doing this and you want to serve a Medicaid population, you want to have a 4 to 6 bed facility at this amount, you're going to see here, I'm going to dive into some numbers. It starts to not make a lot of sense. And let's dive into those numbers so you can see exactly why that's the case. So the biggest cost, we're going to go through 5 major expenses. And the biggest one that I really want you to look at here is labor. So you have to pay your staff. You're going to have an administrator. You're going to have caregivers. The wages that you pay people will typically take up in any part of assisted living 50 to 80% of your operating budget. So the total amount of money that you are paying out to run this business is going to be driven by the wages. So once you kind of get a really good understanding of what you're going to be paying people, it really allows you to move forward and feel confident in an opportunity, because then you know what half or more of your operating budget is going to look like. And that really allows you to really hone in on those numbers and see if it's going to make sense for you. Okay. So this is where the money is going. Number one, you've got to pay your administrator. An administrator, depending on the state, depending on their experience, levels of care that you're doing, you're probably going to pay between $50,000 and $80,000 a year. We pay ours. I think one of them is around 55, 58,000. The other one I think is 65,000. So it's in that range. Again, I'm in Colorado and Idaho. If I'm in California, I'm probably going to be at the higher end of that range. If I'm in Texas or Mississippi or Alabama, I'm probably going to be at the lower end of that range, just based off of where wages are across the nation. So you just have to kind of do a little bit of research on that. Think about where you're going to be paying that person. But $50,000 to $80,000, so that's about between $4,200 and $6,700 per month, just that alone, in paying out to your administrator. Then you're going to have to do your caregiver. And your caregivers, in a perfect world, you're looking in a 6-bed facility, you're probably looking at about 4 FTE. An FTE is a full-time equivalent employee. So basically what that says is you're going to have 4 employees that are working full-time. So those employees all are going to get paid 40 hours a week, and let's say that they make $17 an hour. Pretty average. We pay ours between about 16, I think, is our low end, up to $21 an hour. So it gives you a range. 17's a little bit on the low end, but it still is going to give you an idea of what that's going to look like. So for FTE, $17 an hour, I'm paying about $10,000 per month. So that 10,000 plus, let's just say $5,000 for the administrator, that's now $15,000 in expenses, just in in paying the wages. Plus I'm going to have to pay taxes. So you're going to add probably, just let's say, an extra 10% on top of that you have to pay in taxes just because you're working on this. So now we're looking at 15,000 plus 10% is 16,500. So you can already see that 16,500. If I'm charging $4,000 a month, and I'm making $24,000 in income, that all of a sudden is making my profit, my gap there of what is profit, at about $8,000. Now, if I'm charging $6,000, it's going to increase that gap quite a bit, and give me a little bit more breathing room, but it's still not going to give me a ton of extra room. I've got $20,000 to play with, but you're going to see there's a lot more expenses as you get into this as well. Excuse me. Plus, you want to account for vacancies, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit here on the video. So that's number one. You have to understand what your wages are going to be. Now, where this can make sense, there's two ways really where this can make sense. Number one, you charge residents more, so you get more income. But number two is you are more involved in the business. And you're okay not getting a huge profit because you're putting in the work, so you're paying yourself a wage. So that's where I have a video on the channel that talks about a 2 or 3 bed care home. Can it be profitable or not? And the answer to that, the short answer is yes, it can be profitable, but you are going to have to be pretty involved in the work that is going into the facility. So if you are okay doing that, that can make this work. If you want to do what I'm doing and you want to be the operator, you want to be out of state, you want to make it work that way, your budget is gonna you're just the ability to make a lot of money off of this shrinks significantly in a six bed facility. Okay, labor, that's the number one cost. The other top four big costs, I call them the big five. So wages is one, number two is insurance, three is utilities, four is food, and five is debt service. So let's talk about debt service first. Your debt service is the amount of money that you're paying the mortgage basically for the house. Now if you own this house already and you're going to do a conversion, you know what that price is going to be. Maybe you're going to have to do a little bit of a renovation. You're going to have to take out a HELOC. You're going to have an extra payment, or get some hard money or something like that to get you the money that you need to do the renovation. But you can get a pretty good feel for what that's going to look like. If you're going to buy an existing facility or an existing house and you're going to do the renovation, you can probably figure out around what that service payment is going to be, but you may not know exactly what it's going to be until you get to the point where you're closing. So debt service is a really big one. I don't want to give you an example of what that would look like because every single opportunity is going to look different. If you already own the house and you bought it 15 years ago, your interest rate's going to be super low. Your house payment's going to be $1,500. Whereas if I buy it today, high interest rates, I'm looking at a $4,000 or $5,000 payment. Like it really depends on the specific situation. You want to kind of take those on a case by case basis, but that's a big expense that you got to be aware of. Um, let's see. Next one is, let's talk about food. So your residents, you got to feed them. So you're going to have to work with them there. A really good number to help you back into this amount is it's about $8 per resident per day. And you might hear that number and be like, there's no way you can feed that many people on just $8 a day per resident. And I've done a lot of analysis on this, looking at my facilities, and it turns out to be true. Now, if I'm doing a 6 bed facility, maybe I need to bump it up a little bit because I don't have quite the scalability that I get when I'm working with just six versus 16, like a big difference there. But you're still not spending a lot. You have to remember a lot of the residents that you're going to be serving are elderly. They just don't eat a ton. You're buying in bulk. You're shopping at Sam's Club or Costco. You're buying large quantities of food, and by doing that, you're going to get reduced costs by doing that. So your amount there really isn't going to be too much. So if we're looking at a 6 bed facility, we have 6 residents in there. We're saying it's $10 per resident per day. That's $10 per times 6, so that's 60 times that by $30. So it's about $1,800 if I did the math, which is super dangerous to do this live without a calculator. But that's going to back you into about what your amount of food is going to be. That's a budget right there. Okay. Next is your utilities. So this is your internet, your TV, you got to pay for trash and power, gas. All of those utilities are going to come together. Again, if you own the facility, you already own the home, and you're doing a conversion on your own, you're going to have an idea of what those utilities are going to look like. If you're buying an existing facility, you can get that when you get the P&Ls and the tax returns from the person that you're buying it from. If you're doing a renovation, you might just have to guess around what that's going to be. But that's another big expense you got to be aware of, and it's consistent. It's a monthly expense, right? Next is going to be insurance. You need 3 types of insurance. There's going to be workers' comp, so you have to get that for your workers. So that's a chunk of money. It's dependent a lot on how much you pay your resident or how much you pay your staff, and you have to report that on a quarterly basis. And then you have to figure out what that payment's going to be. Workers' comp will tell you what it is. There's liability insurance, and then there's just like homeowner type insurance, property insurance, basically. When you're working in this world, because I honestly think that there's a bit of a gap of understanding in the type of care that you provide. Insurance companies look at assisted living as kind of a high risk type of a facility. They kind of equate it and lump it in with nursing homes, which I personally don't think is fair, but it's the reality of what you're working with. So you're going to pay kind of high interest insurance rates as you get into this. And then as you have the chance to show what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, you have the right staff, you have plans in place and things like that, and you've shown yourself as a good I don't know, insurance carrier, for lack of a better phrase, then you can start to see that come down just a little bit, but also insurance rates are going up, so it just kind of levels out, and you kind of just keep this base insurance rate that's about the same. Again, I don't want to give you specifics on what that could be because each opportunity is going to be based off of what you're going to find. I would talk with an insurance broker and see if they can help you out in figuring out what those insurance amounts are. Now, these four insurance, utilities, food, debt service, plus the wages, that's going to be 80 to 90% of your operating budget. So if you can back into these numbers and get a really good feel of what those look like, then you're going to see what your expenses are. But we already know in this scenario where we're looking at wages that we were at about 15, 16,000 in just wages. And now we've got to add on our debt service. Let's say that's $3 extra thousand to be pretty conservative, I feel like. So now we're at 19,500. Let's say our food is at 1,800. So let's make the math easy. Say it's 1,500. So now we're at, so we're at 19,500. Now we're at 21,000. Then let's say our insurance, that's going to be an extra $1,000 a month. Let's just be conservative there. So now we're at 22,000, and then our utilities, let's just throw that as an extra $1,000 a month there. So now we're at 23,000 if I'm tracking my math correctly. So you can already see we're at 23,000. If I'm doing $4,000 per month for my residents, and I have 6 residents and I have at full capacity all the time, that's $1,000, but that's only 80 to 90% of my budget. So there's going to be extra miscellaneous stuff that's going to happen there. You want to probably pay for some software to help you out with your EHR, and just some other things that are going to come about, holidays, decorating for holidays, and gifts and things like that for the residents that you're going to give them for the holidays. There's going to be extra money that goes into that. So you probably want to budget an extra few $1,000s for that. So all of a sudden that amount that you had $24,000 of income coming in is gone. Like it's totally gone. And if you're charging somebody $6,000 a month, that might make a little bit more sense. You might be able to hit that gap and generate some income there, but it's something that you just have to be really, really careful with as you're doing that. So this is why I say it's so important for you to understand the finances before you jump into this. For you to message me, and I get these messages all the time. I've got a 3-bedroom home. I got a 4-bedroom home. I want to convert it. I think it's perfect for assisted living, and it might be. It really could be. Maybe you have super low debt service. Maybe there's opportunities to do other renovations on the house. Maybe there's just you have really big rooms and you can do shared rooms. There could be a lot of variances, or maybe it's just like in this really nice area of town, and it's super high class, and people are going to be willing to pay $12,000 a month to be in the home. Those are all factors, but for me to tell you when you message me that you got a 3 or 4 bed home that you want to convert because you think it's great for assisted living, I have to tell you, like, pump the brakes a little bit, because you have to understand the finances before you really dive into this and see if you're going to move forward with it. You have to understand what that income is going to be. So you got to do the market research. You got to see, what can the market hold here? Or am I going to only be able to charge 4,000? Can I charge 15,000? What's that going to look like? Where on that continuum am I going to land with this? And now I also need to, do a little bit of research and say, okay, it's probably going to take me, 6 months to go from I don't have anybody to getting all of my beds full. What am I going to do in that 6-month gap? And what am I going to do if somebody passes away, or somebody just wants to leave, or somebody doesn't need to be in assisted living anymore? How are we going to deal with those vacancies? And so you always have to plan for those vacancies. So you have to, number one, hone in on what that income is going to look like. And then you have to understand what those expenses are. Yeah, you really have to get familiar with the wages, understand what those are for your specific state, for the people that you want to hire. Do you want to work in the facility? Because that can be a huge impact there. We looked at that administrator wage. If you want to be the administrator, all of a sudden this changes things significantly because you don't have that $50,000 chunk of money that's going to an administrator. That's coming to you, and while it's a wage, you can kind of make that work, and you're getting paid for it. You can create a living wage for yourself out of it if you want to be involved. If you don't, though, then you have to understand how that's all going to impact you. You need to really do some research as well on some of those other big expenses. Talk to an insurance broker to figure out what the insurance might cost you. You want to be looking at the debt service. You want to be honing in on the food. Are you going to be working with somebody that needs a special diet? Maybe do some pricing on it. We use Grove Menus. I'd love to give you a discount code, but they don't have any. Grove Menus is great for helping with meal planning, so that's a big one. You want to hone in on those utilities. I think that's the one that I forgot. So you want to figure out what those are going to be, figure out what those expenses are, and then you are going to back that in. So when you're doing your underwriting, you're trying to figure out, is this going to make sense? Before you do any of that, you have to build this foundation. You have to build the business plan so you can get the funding, but you have to do the underwriting so you understand, is this really going to work for me or not? And if it's not, then maybe you want to look for something that's 10 beds or 12 beds or 16 beds. You want to start looking at things. You can always make a deal work, though. Like I mentioned at the top of the video, it's just a simple math equation. So you have to figure out. I have the equation down here. It's income minus expenses equals net income. So if you have this idea of, I want $10,000 in net income, and I know my expenses are going to be, so let's say $10,000 here. I know my expenses are going to be $40,000. Let's just say. So I know that I need my income to be at least $50,000. So how am I going to get to that in a 6-bed facility? Well, 6 times 8, that's 48,000. That's pretty close. So maybe it's $8,500, right? I'm not going to do the math on that in my head because that'll be a disaster. But maybe $8,500 per month per resident is the number I need to be at so I can do that. Or do I need to have it be $10,000 per month so I can account for that vacancy? So if I average a total occupancy of 5 residents, now I'm at $50,000 in income. Now $50,000 in income minus the 40,000 equals that net revenue of $10,000 per month. And now, is the market going to hold for me to do that $10,000 per month? That's the research I need to do. It's really as complicated as it can sound, and there's a lot of numbers involved, and they're getting thrown around all over the place. It really comes down to a very simple math problem. The income minus the expenses equaling the net income. If you back your way into it, then you can figure out, is this going to work for me or not? And that's really how you're going to decide if this is all going to work for you. So can a six-bed facility be profitable? Really, it comes down to, how involved do you want to be? Are you accounting for those vacancies? And what do those numbers look like? What are the expenses? What does that income look like? How's that all going to work for you? You can make it work. It's totally possible, but you have to understand what those numbers are. You can't just jump into this blindly and say, cool, I want, assisted living. I've heard a lot of people talk about it on YouTube, podcasts. They say it's great. I can make a ton of money off of it. I'm going to jump in. I got this 4-bedroom home. It's going to be great. And try to figure it out. If you don't understand those expenses, like, you're probably not going to be successful. So you have to spend time to build this foundation, to underwrite it, to really understand the expenses before you jump in. Because if not, you're like, what I really don't want you to do is jump blindly into this and think, oh, it's going to be perfect, it's going to work, and then you find yourself losing $10,000 a month. And you have the lives of all of your residents and your staff relying on you to pay the bills, and all of a sudden you're losing all of your money and your retirement and everything that you've worked hard for. You don't want to do that. You want to be wise when you go into this. This is why I personally don't like smaller homes. It's more risk than I am comfortable with. That doesn't mean that it can't be good for you. It just, like, that's for me. That's how I feel about it. So ultimately, yes, 6-bed facility can be profitable. Question to ask is it right for you, for your situation, where you're at? Does it make sense? Like, you're the only one that can answer that. So you have to do that. And that honestly goes for every single opportunity. Just because I tell you that my threshold is about 10 doesn't mean that every 10-bed facility that comes on the market, I'm like, yep, I want to do it. I need to look at it on a case-by-case basis. Even a 16-bed facility. Doesn't mean that it's like going to be the perfect opportunity and make a ton of sense for me. Every single opportunity needs to be taken on a case-by-case basis, and you have to understand the risks that go into this and understand what those finances are going to look like. Sometimes it might work, sometimes it might not. You just have to really get an understanding of what that's going to look like for you. Okay. If you need some help doing this, I would love to help you out. Go grab the Launchpad bundle. This is how I help you build that foundation, building the business plan, doing the underwriting, understanding how to do the underwriting. As a part of that bundle, there's an Underwrite with Me course in there as well. So I take an opportunity. It's actually an 8-bed facility that could be converted into a 10-bed facility, and I underwrite it as if I were looking at it to see if I would buy it or not. So you can do that. You can follow along with me, learn how I underwrite it, and I tell you, like, would I do it or not? Would I do it at 8 beds? Would I do it at 10 beds? And I'm very honest with you on if I would do that opportunity or not. So you can see exactly where my logic goes into this to see if it would work for you. So you can go check that out. It's a part of the Launchpad bundle, assistedlivinginvesting.net/launchpad, to really help you out and help you make some really good progress as you're trying to build the foundation to see if this is even going to work for you. It is worth it to spend a little bit of money to figure out how to build that foundation to see if you should be moving forward with this opportunity, if you should be moving forward with assisted living or not. Okay. So with that said, I want to remind you, we're going to do Q&A. So if you have questions, type those in. We'll get to that here in just a second. I want to remind you to like the video, subscribe, and ring the bell as well, so you get notified every time we put out content like this. We go live on Tuesdays. We put out content on Thursdays as well. We're in Facebook. We're on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Make sure you're just kind of in the ecosystem, getting that. Go and grab that free resource, the business plan checklist, assistedlivinginvesting.net/BP checklist, so that you get that free resource. But then I also give you an email on a weekly basis that gives you all the content, so that, make sure you don't miss anything that's coming out. Now, with all of that said, let's jump down here into questions. All right. So I'm trying out a new little thing here to see how these work. Okay. The thing that I was doing didn't work exactly how I wanted, but that's all right. Victor, there we go. I'm playing a little bit with the software that I use here to see what features I've got and how it works. And yeah, we'll keep going. So Victor, you've been waiting on this one. Hopefully it helped you. Let me know if you have any questions on that, Victor. Jay, can you increase the resident's monthly rent? Yes, you can. You can increase that monthly rent. So there's a few ways you can do it. One is based off of care. So you can look at the residents and you can say, hey, this is bugging me, so I'm just going to delete this thing. I don't know if I can shift that up. No, we're trying to do stuff on the fly. It didn't work. Okay. Okay. Let's see. So Jay, can you increase the monthly rent for a resident? Yeah, there's two ways. One is based off of care. So you can look at the care, you do an evaluation. We do them at least annually, and you should be doing this at least annually. The other time that you do it is when you see a definitive increase in the amount of care that they are receiving. So you can do this whenever you want, but you should be doing it at least annually. It's an assessment. You want to bring your nurse in. You want them to look at the resident. You want to do an assessment on how much care is being provided. And if more care is provided, then you would be charging them more. We do this with Medicaid as well in our facilities, where we do this on an annual basis. And in Medicaid, where we are, and Medicaid is different in each state, so what I tell you may not be accurate in your state, so just like a grain of salt. But we are able to do a review and submit that to Medicaid for them to look at and potentially raise rates of residents. So that's number one, level of care. Number two is you can just be looking at it and say, from a market standpoint, I've done some market research, and I know that I'm charging people $4,000 a month. I know no other facility is charging less than $4,500. So I'm going to bump my rate up. And you just tell them. Typically, what you're going to see and I would encourage you to do this, and it's something I teach inside of my mastermind program, is you write your contracts with the residents in a way that allows you to make changes. And this could be room assignments, could be the amount of money that they are paying for their monthly amount, that you have to give them 30 days notice. Hey, we are increasing your rate. from $4,000 to $4,500. So you do have to give a little bit of notice. There's also language in there that they are supposed to give you 30 days notice when they are going to leave. So it just ways for you to protect yourself and make sure that you have the information in there that you need so that you can make those changes. But you absolutely can make changes to resident rates. Now, when you're in the moment and you're doing it, it's a different story. It's more difficult to just be like, you get so stuck in, okay, I'm getting the $4,000 or $5,000 a month. I'm here, and you're so caught up in running the business that you don't think to go do that market research and kind of true your rates up with other people in the area. So that's something that I would encourage you to do if you're going to jump into this, is make sure you have a mechanism in place to go and do the market research and figure out what it is, and then raise your rates accordingly. So you just have to do that. But when you're in the moment, you will own this business. 3 years will go by in the blink of an eye, and you'll be like, oh crap, my rates are what they were 3 years ago. Somebody's going to kill their deal right now. So that's where you want to reevaluate some of these. And you might get pushback. You may get people, they're like, fine, you know what, my mom, she's going to come live with us now, or we're going to go find a different a different house to stay in. And you just have to hold true to it, because it's not fair to you as a business owner. It's also not fair to the other residents in the facility if somebody's getting a killer deal on their rent. And so you just have to be transparent. You have to be consistent as you're going through it, but you can definitely raise those rates. Let's see, what time is it? Yeah, can I elaborate on FTE? So hopefully I answered that for you, Jay. FTE is a full-time equivalent. So let's say you're a nurse. I don't know you, but let's just say you're a nurse. You work you work 40 hours a week. Okay. And as a nurse, you probably work more than that, but a person that works, generally it's usually termed as 32 hours a week is typically what you see when you look at this from like a legal standpoint. But at least 32 hours a week is what you would term a full-time employee. A full-time equivalent, so a full-time employee is different from a full-time equivalent. A full-time equivalent is somebody that works at least 40 hours per week. So if what you want to do when you're looking at that is you want to take all of the shifts that exist. So let's say you're working 8-hour shifts. So you would do 8-hour shifts. There's 3 of those in a day. 3 times 7, so that's 21 shifts total. And then you would take that. I hope you're following this, because this is kind of hard math. So you have 21 total shifts in a week, right? 8-hour shifts, 3 shifts in a day, times it by 7 days in a week. So you have 21 shifts in a week. So if there's 21 shifts in a week, and in each shift, let's see, let's do some math. Each shift is 8 hours. So now you're going to take that 21, you're going to times it by 8. So that's 168 hours. Okay. So that's 168 working hours in a week. You're going to divide that by 40. And that's going to get you to 4.1 or even less than that. So that's what it is. I hope I did the math right, number one, but hopefully that makes sense in your mind and how I got to that 4 FTE. So you're taking all of those shifts that exist in a week, and then you're going to put that into how many people you need to hire to cover those shifts. Now, somebody might want to work 1.5 FTE, and you're just going to pay overtime for that half time that they're working overtime. Could be the case. Maybe that's something you want to do. You might be able to actually find some saving there if you're doing that. But then you might also get unhappy workers that are happy with it for the first month, and then they start to get burned out because they're working too much. So I hope that makes sense. I hope I did the math right. And yeah, it's always dangerous to do math when you're live and not looking at a calculator. Hopefully that helps. Jay, got another one. How does one find facilities for sale? So if you're going to look at existing facilities, there's a few really good resources for that. LoopNet, and I have videos for LoopNet and BizBuySell on the channel. So if you just go to Assisted Living Investing on YouTube, go to my channel, search inside the channel for BizBuySell or LoopNet, you can get access to those videos that kind of show you a little bit of how they work. And then the third one is Crexi, CREXI. Those are commercial business listing places, and you can find that inside Mastermind. We actually have a masterclass where I dive deep into how to use all three of those, so you can see exactly how you could go find an opportunity, how you're going to reach out to a broker, how you're going to instigate that conversation and start working with them. So if that's something you feel like would be helpful, that's something we do in the mastermind program. So those are really good resources for existing facilities. If you want to be looking for a house that kind of fits what you are looking for assisted living, then I would suggest getting on Zillow, Redfin, homes.com, some of those types of sites. And you want to be looking for larger homes with high bed quantities. Typically what that means, they typically cap it at like 5 or 6 beds. They do 5 plus or 6 plus beds. And so you're not going to be able to find a 10 bed facility or 10 bed home on LoopNet. You can, it's just going to be lumped in with some of the smaller homes. That's something that you can do if you want to be looking at it as something that's more of a conversion or even a rent. Like you could go to apartments.com or rently.com, I think, is another one, and you could do the same thing. And those are some groups that you could be looking at. And again, mastermind, there's a master class that goes over how to use each of these things and how to really help you progress on it. But those are ways for you to dive into that and help you find the right property for the specific situation that you find yourself in. Great resources. And you can, if you're going the route of buying an existing facility, I love using Crexy, BizBuySell, LoopNet, and starting a relationship with a broker and having that broker really help me out. Like that's how I got started. So there's some advice for you. Another one here, Jay. Do you factor lease amount for the property? Yeah. So the debt service I was talking about there, for what that's going to look like for you from a mortgage standpoint, you would just replace that with the lease. So whenever I say debt service, if you're looking to lease a property, then you would substitute debt service for lease. So it's basically the amount of money that you're going to be paying to have access to the property. That's going to be, that's going to be that payment. So that's one that you want to be factoring in there for sure. It's one of the big 5 expenses that I go over that I recommend that you look at. Victor, what ratio of private shared rooms do you prefer to run? Should we be the administrator for our first facility until we get up to capacity? With square foot per resident is doable. So let's answer the last one first. Square foot. So each state's going to have guidance on that. So in a single room, this is general. Your state may be different, so you want to double check this. In general, 100 square feet per resident in a private room is that's what's required. If you're doing a shared room, it's 80 square feet per resident in the room. So 160 square foot for a shared room, basically. So the difference there is a 10 by 10 room for 100 square foot type of a room versus a 16 by 10 room for 160 square foot for a shared room. That's like for easy math to make it work. That kind of gives you an idea of what to look like, what you're looking at. You want to verify that for the state that you're in, though. That's going to help you out. Private to shared rooms, do I prefer? So as an operator that does a lot of Medicaid, it benefits me a lot to do shared rooms. So we do shared rooms in as many of the rooms as we can, based off of room size. Some people don't like that. Some people look at me, they think, why are you doing Medicaid? How dare you shared rooms? And my answer is, I'm doing this so, I'm making it work and I make the finances work. So I honestly don't care what you think. I'm going to run my business the way that I want to do it, and I'm going to provide the care to my residents the best that I can. So that's my opinion on how to do that. You might disagree with that. That's totally fine. When you have your own business, you can do the same. You can do whatever you want. Now, that's my opinion on how to do that. Now, could I maybe charge more if I were to do all private rooms? Yes, I could definitely charge more. Could I make more? That's debatable. So it's, if I was doing private rooms, and I'm going to use my Idaho facility as an example, I could probably be charging people $9,000 to $10,000. I think the market would hold that for private pay for a private room in my facility. Whereas I do Medicaid, I can do shared rooms, and I can get about $12,000 per month. So I can get an extra $2,000 per month when I'm doing that. And then if I have a vacancy for that room, I'm still getting $6,000 rather than having a fully vacant room. So you have to, it really comes down to numbers, your perspective on what you're comfortable with and how you run the business and how that's going to work for you. So you have to kind of figure that out. I think it's a personal decision for every single operator. So you got to figure out how it's going to work for you. Okay. Um, and then should you be the administrator of your first facility until you get it to capacity? It's a, again, personal decision. You can definitely do that. Like I was mentioning, you're able to then pay yourself a wage, whether it's living or not. You get to make that decision as a person that's doing it. You just have to realize there's a lot that goes into becoming a facility administrator. There's making sure you have the amount of hours that are needed, that you're taking the test, you're passing the test. There's a lot that goes into it. Now, if you already have the license to be the facility administrator, and there's a lot of you that watch this that do, it probably makes sense to do that. You want to do this, you can jump in, you can be that person, you can help it get up to capacity. It gives you the experience to work in the business, so you know what is real, not real, when you're having conversation with the administrator that you're talking to, that you've hired. So that really can help out in the way that you are running the business. I did not do that. So I can't come from a place of telling you, yep, you should do it, because I did it, because I didn't. I hired people from day one and let them run the business. So it really is a personal decision and how involved you want to be and how it's going to work as you're running the facility. Jay, as an administrator, can you operate more than one facility? That's a really good question. Each state's going to have different rules on that. In general, yes. There's usually a rule. It's based off of how many facilities and how many beds in the different facilities. The rule last I checked in Idaho was if it's less than 20 beds in a facility, they can be over 3 total facilities. If it's more than 20 beds, then they can be only over 2 facilities. But then there's like a higher level that's like an executive director. You can have oversight over people. There's ways to kind of get around it with administrators and training that are underneath you as well. So it just kind of depends there. You can be over multiple facilities, but you want to check the local rules, the state rules for your jurisdiction, and see what the rules are there before you jump into it. But in general, yes, you can be over multiple facilities. I am not an admin of my facility. So no, I operate out of state. I live in Utah. Facilities are in Colorado and Utah. I go visit them a few times a year. So I'm not the administrator. We hire that out, and people run the business for us. Did my dad or I ever decide to work in our facility at first? What was your worst experience situation in dealing with employees or residents ever used a placing agency? We have had conversations with placing agencies before. We have not used them, though. In our Colorado facility, we're having conversations again with some. We have quite a few vacancies there, and have for a long time, because of the grant work that we did in that facility. So we're trying to get it back up to capacity. So we will probably be working with them. We've had conversations with like a Place for Mom and have not been super impressed with them. As a small facility, I don't think it makes sense to work with a company like that. But small placement agencies, I think there's room to work with those with placement agencies. My dad and I, neither of us decided we wanted to work in the facility. That was like a day one decision. We didn't want to do that. My dad has covered a couple of shifts. And I'll answer the other question for why he had to work those shifts. So it was around Christmas time in 2021. Yeah, I think. I don't know. Anyways, it was around Christmas time. We had our administrator, and she was from Hawaii, had been working at one of our facilities. I don't want to give specifics because I don't want to have it get back to this individual. But they had a pretty significant breakdown and ended up moving back to Hawaii. Left us without an administrator. Very short notice, and just took off, and that was extremely stressful for us. So we had to find somebody. My dad went up, covered a couple of shifts. We had some staff leave. We were already short staffed. This individual was burnt out from their job, and that's part of the reason why they had the breakdown. And so we had to cover those shifts. We had to hire a new administrator. We had to look at potentially even changing the function of the building, to just make sure that we could make ends meet. Ultimately, we found a great person. She did an incredible job, but she eventually also got burnt out. Like, there's a lot of burnout in this world. That's why caregivers are such high turnover. It's why administrators can be high turnover. There's just a lot of burnout. There's a lot of work and hard work and care and love and emotions that go into working in this world, and it can lead to burnout. Like, it's something you should be aware of as you get into this. So that has been difficult at that facility. We are on our fourth administrator. In the past, we've owned it now for 4 years, and we have to cycle through. Now, that's made it a lot easier for me to know how to hire people, and get through that. The first time I was so stressed, but since then, I like the last time it happened, I knew exactly what to do. As I was having the initial conversation with administrator, that she had told me, hey, we're going to be, I'm leaving, I'm giving my 2 weeks notice. I had my job posting up by the end of that call, because I was not going to miss a beat. I just went for it, and we got to figure it out. So you have to just kind of play those things by ear and figure out how you're going to make it work. And it can be stressful, but you can do it. So that's been like the most stressful situation that we've handled. We've also had an issue with a resident in the past, some legal things that I'm not going to get into, but suffice to say, we had to have conversations with attorneys about things, and ultimately ended up working through that. So it happens. It's stuff you want to be aware of. It's why you got to get insurance. It's why you got to have good people, attorneys, and people like that for you to work with and talk with as you're going through it. You just want to protect yourself as much as you possibly can. Phyllis, let's see. How do you feel about all-inclusive fee? I think it's fine. I would just say, I think it depends on the amenities that you're going to be offering. If you want to offer a bunch of extra amenities, then you probably want to charge by amenity. We do ours as basically an all-inclusive fee. We have a base fee, and then we will charge people. It's like on a point basis based off of the level of care, but everything else that we do at our facility is included in that. So all the food, and if they needed extra toiletries or things like that, it all just kind of comes in as a group. We don't charge them extra for things like that unless we're seeing something that's outlandish, somebody using a bar of soap a day or something like that. Then we'll have a conversation with them, but typically we do all inclusive fees for our facilities, so I think it's fine. I know other people like to charge for certain amenities. In my mind, as a small facility, it gets hard to track what you're charging who for what, and are you meeting all of those things. Large facilities, I think it makes a lot of sense, as you have something that really can track all that. But a small facility, I personally think that all-inclusive fees are probably a better way to go. They just make it a lot easier for you to manage all of that. And when you're trying to run around and do all of these things, it can be hard to manage everything. So it's a way to simplify it for you. Let's see. Sorry, I've got something coming here. Got a grocery order coming, so I might have to wrap this up. We got a bunch of comments, so I'm gonna try to go through this pretty quick. In your area, you see, in my area, I see mini 6 beds. You're in Cali by Disneyland area, yeah. So I think looking for those opportunities, understanding from a zoning perspective, is it going to work? Having conversations and underwriting those to make sure that you're comfortable with it is probably the most important thing you could do as you get into it. And being in Disneyland, I mean, short-term rentals might be hard to do from a regulatory standpoint, but might end up being more profitable to do that. It's something for you to consider as you look into it. Jay, you've searched LoopNet, Crexy, and Biz. Yeah, they're great sites. So the other thing is you have to continually look. Just because you didn't find something today doesn't mean something's not going to be on there tomorrow. And this is also why I prefer hiring a broker, because they can then be the person that's looking for you and going out and finding those opportunities. It's a good way to go. Victor, just getting all your questions in before later this year when you're too big to do these and too many to answer individually. Yeah, not a problem. Happy to do it. I love being on here and answering questions. It's a lot of fun, and when I can spend time doing it, it's great. I have a bunch of people on my computer over there pinging me, so I might have to. And grocery order coming, so I might not be able to stay much longer, but we'll try to get through all of them. Jay, let's see. Is rent less for a shared room, or is it based by bed and care? It's based by bed and care. Typically, you're going to see for a shared room that it is a little bit less. Like that example I was sharing, if I did private rooms, I could probably charge $9,000 to $10,000 for a room, and with my shared rooms with Medicaid, I'm at about 6,000. So you can kind of see there is a difference there, but it really is going to depend on the level of care, and if somebody's willing to pay a premium for that private room. Okay. Lisa, is Medicaid going to freeze like the grants and federal aid? Um, I could see. It's a good question. So I have a video on assisted living in the Trump administration, so you can go watch that. I do not believe that this part of Medicaid will be impacted by federal funding. I truly don't believe that. There are too many people that rely on it. I could see changes coming to things like food stamps or um, SNAP programs or CHIP or some of those things in the type of foods that could be purchased under RFK. So I could see that for sure, but the impact on benefits for people that like really need the benefits and qualify, I don't think that's going to change. There could be an audit on it that on the providers that are Medicaid providers and the people that receive the Medicaid benefit. I could see an audit on that for sure, but the impact that it's going to have on reimbursement rates, I don't think that there will be any impact there. That's my personal opinion, and what I foresee. There, I think, would be too much political fallout if they just cut it off completely. So um, that's my personal opinion. That's where I think things are going. Hopefully that helps. One, 6-bed Al for sale, a couple months permit has just been approved and renovation will commence soon. Awesome. Thanks, Ben. If after the video posts, if you want to like post a link in the comments, that way people can go find it. Caveat, I don't know Juan. I don't know anything about the deal, so this is not an endorsement, but after the video post, because if you do it here in the comments, then it goes away once it goes out into the world. So I would wait till a video post live is done, then go ahead and post it in the comments, and people can go check it out for you. Okay. It's in Florida. Okay. You're welcome, Phyllis. How about live-in caregivers? Yeah, live-in caregivers can be an option for you as well. This is definitely something to consider if you want to be working with that population or not. Some people will have like an additional dwelling unit, an ADU, on a property that's specific for staff. Some people have like a basement where staff can look at. Like definitely something that you can consider. Maybe you're able to pay them a little bit less because their rent is a part of their compensation package. Like there's ways to look at that. So yeah, it's definitely something that you could consider there for sure. Phyllis, how to search for a great location? Yeah, so I think I give you the Launchpad is a great way for you to kind of understand a little bit about that. So I'm gonna bump this up because I just realized you can't really see it. assistedlivinginvesting.net/launchpad. We have the market research guide in there that can help you out. The accelerator program, which is assistedlivinginvesting.net/ALA. Inside of there, there's a module that is all about how to find the correct property. Or if you want some good hand holding and things, master classes on it and things like that, then go apply to the mastermind program at alimastermind.com. Lisa, you are welcome. Jay, Facebook group. So if you just go to Facebook and search for assisted living investing, it should pop up. It's called Assisted Living Investing helping beginners launch their business, and has the assisted living investing kind of. If you've been on my YouTube site, you probably will recognize it. So yeah, that'll help you out there. Okay, I think we got through all the comments. So thank you everybody for watching. I've got to go. We've got about an hour here. Appreciate you all being here and hopping on. Make sure you go grab the free business plan checklist at assistedlivinginvesting.net/BP checklist. Great tool. helping you build that business plan, helping you build the foundation that you need so you can launch your assisted living business. Does residential assisted living sound interesting to you, but you don't know how to get started? At Assisted Living Investing, I'm here to help beginners like you launch their assisted living business in the next 12 months. I love helping people and coaching people. Would love to help you. Go check us out at alimastermind.com. And remember, it doesn't take a lot, just a little bit. Just keep going step by step by step. And I promise if you do and you're consistent and persistent, you're going to be successful. Thanks for watching and have a great day.